bossa nova. And the cool thing about the bossa is, one, it's a beautiful sort of medium tempo Brazilian dance rhythm. And second, if you split this thing apart, and I'm going to show you in a minute, it has many roots to modern music. So you'll hear it in like sort of modern pop and modern rock kind of all over the place, because sort of the rhythmic syncopation to it fits so well, and we wind up using it. So I teach a lot of drummers this rhythm, and then we bust it apart and I go, oh, you hear this, you hear that, and like, oh, that's weird. So I think it's good to learn this in its root form first, and then we'll talk about the other places that you're definitely going to hear these rhythms popping out. So as we mentioned, this is a bossa nova rhythm, and hands down the most famous composer of bossa nova was Antonio Carlos Jobim, Brazilian composer. He wrote my favorite tune of all time, The Waters of March, but he also wrote probably the most famous bossa nova that everybody knows is The Girl from Ipanema. So I'll just play this bossa nova rhythm with it so you can hear it. 1, 2, 3. So that's the bossa, and that's also me singing Girl from Ipanema, super terrible. I think on one of these others I sang in like 14 different keys. You know those people that can't sing the national anthem and they jump around? Well, that's me today, so I'm really sorry about that. Okay, so let's break this thing down so that we kind of understand what this rhythm is first, and then we'll go from there. It has what I call a heartbeat bass drum to it. We're going to add eighth notes on the hi-hat to that. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll also notice that as I'm doing this, I'm not going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 3. You know, it has a nice cruise to it. So it's important when you're doing even the same beat in a different style that you're thinking about what style you're playing in. You know, you don't want to take a heavy metal concept to a bossa nova, and you don't want to take a bossa nova to a death metal concert. You know what I mean? It's just not really going to, I don't think it's going to cut through the fog, so to speak, you know? All right, so that's the hi-hat and bass drum part, what I think of the heartbeat. Then we'll work on the rim pattern separately. Now, ultimately, in these bossas, they're going to improvise this rhythm, and we're also going to kind of play it backwards. Again, the sort of Americanized version of it, which is 1, 2, as written, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Now we're going to start that whole thing over. We're going to play the bass drum and the hi-hat with the heartbeat, and then bring in the left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Now you can take that whole thing and you can reverse it, and you can start and play it kind of 3-2, the 3 notes in the first bar and the 2 in the second, and that's kind of the more traditional way. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's the bossa kind of in its traditional form. Again, you can play that in different places. Some people play like a brush on the snare drum. You can ride on the ride. And again, with a lot of the world rhythms, I'll just say briefly that often there are not official drum set parts for them. So when we put the kit together, we're sort of making it up. What happened is, Afro-Cuban rhythms, there's not really a drum set, or there wasn't until much later. So by the time they put all the drum set together, and the marching drum ended up down here, and there was a snare drum, we're like using the rim to play claves, and the bell of the ride cymbal to cover cowbell, and these become the timbale, and the toms are sort of the congas, and then like 3 people got fired because 1 person could do it. So as someone told me one time, it's not about the money, Josh. It's about the money. So now what I want to do is take this rhythm, and we're just going to cut it in half. We're going to play each bar individually, and you'll see how it sounds in more of a modern context. So if we just do the first measure, where we're hitting the snare drum on 2 and the and of 3, and we're going to, instead of playing on the rim, we're going to play on the snare drum, it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that rhythm right there is definitely Learn to Fly by the Foo Fighters. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, 3, 4. with a slight variation, you get boom, ba, doo, doo, da, da, doo, da, doo. So you've got, but then they just move it around, and instead of playing the total heartbeat on the bass drum, Ringo, the creator of this incredible groove, goes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Because he's a genius, that's why. If you take the 3 side and you play that on the ride cymbal, and play 1, 2, da 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 da. I actually played this song on one of my band's albums. The band was called The Lift, and the song is called Ride. And this is sort of the chorus section of it, where I literally played just the second bar of the bossa on the ride cymbal, and that's what the groove of that song ended up being, and it sounded cool. Check it out. And that rhythm right there, 1 and 2 and 3, is everywhere in music. If you play just the 3 side and fill in all those other notes on the bass drum, ba-goo-goo, ba-goo-goo, ga-goo-got, you get Clocks by Coldplay. Ba-na-na-na-na-na. So there are your 5 beats to play 5 million songs. You know, when I was playing these beats, how many songs did you hear that weren't the ones that I was naming? I'm guessing quite a few. Feel free to go back and review all this information. I hope that you found it interesting on some level, maybe even somewhat helpful. My hope is that this is going to help you hear music in a slightly different light. Oh, that's a shuffle. Oh, that's a ballad. Oh, I can kind of hear a bossa nova happening in this song. It's not a bossa, but it's like a bossa. This is the way that I think about music. It's the connection between all this stuff that's really important. So have fun with it and groove on.